In a secluded part of the world, where the forest meets the vast expanse of the ocean, lies a coastal wilderness untouched by time. The cliffs rise sharply from the water, with the dense forest of towering trees weaving a veil of green between the earth and the sea. In this wild expanse, the balance between land and water is delicate, a constant dance of survival and peace. The creatures here have adapted to the rhythm of the tides, the seasons, and the wildness that defines their existence. At the edge of this untamed land lived a bear, a massive grizzly with a deep chestnut coat, known to the villagers who lived nearby as a solitary creature. This bear was no stranger to the wilderness. His life had always been dictated by survival, the hunt for food, the need to find shelter, and the constant vigilance required to navigate the rugged terrain of his coastal home. For years he had lived alone, roaming the wilds, his presence a quiet force of nature that none dared to challenge. The world around him was one of instinct and solitude, and he had come to accept the isolation as part of who he was. But life in the wilderness is ever-changing, and even the strongest creatures must sometimes face challenges that test their endurance. The grizzly bear, though a solitary figure, was a survivor, one of nature's most resilient creatures. He knew the forest's every corner, each rock and stream, every scent in the wind. His instincts were finely tuned, allowing him to survive even the harshest winters and most unpredictable summers. Yet there was always one place he knew better than the rest: the coastline. It was here, where the land kissed the ocean, that he often found his greatest source of sustenance. The bear had often wandered to the edge of the water to catch the fish that leapt in the shallows, his powerful paws swiping through the water with practiced ease. He was a hunter, a creature of strength and power. But the ocean, as vast and unpredictable as it was, held its own dangers, dangers the bear had never truly understood. He was no expert swimmer, and the currents of the ocean were unfamiliar to him. But hunger, as it often does in the wild, would push him beyond his normal territory. And one fateful day, that hunger would drive him into the very heart of the ocean, where he would face a struggle unlike anything he had ever known. The bear's life had always been governed by survival, but the day he ventured too far into the waters would forever change the course of his journey. In the depths of the ocean, a different kind of creature thrived. A dolphin swam through the waves with effortless grace, her sleek body cutting through the water like a flash of silver. Her name was Echo, and she had known the sea since the day she was born. She was no stranger to the rhythms of the ocean, the way the tides ebbed and flowed, how the currents moved, and how the creatures of the sea communicated through their clicks and whistles. Echo was young, but she had learned quickly. Her pod had taught her the ways of the ocean, how to navigate the currents, hunt for food, and live in harmony with the sea. Yet despite the vastness of the ocean that was her home, Echo had always felt a connection to the world beyond. She was fascinated by the land that bordered the water. She often swam near the coast, watching the creatures of the shore, and land with a sense of wonder. Though she knew the forest and mountains were far beyond her reach, the sight of the wild, untamed land was always an intriguing mystery to her. Echo had often heard the stories of the animals that lived near the shore: the elk, the bears, and even the elusive wolves that came to drink from the river. She never thought much of it, for the sea was her world. But one day, as Echo swam near the shoreline, something unexpected caught her attention. A creature that was unfamiliar to her: a bear, struggling in the waves. The bear was not a swimmer, and it was being carried away by the powerful currents, unable to break free. It was on one of these quiet days that Echo first noticed the bear, a massive, dark shape against the blue of the ocean. At first, she thought it was an illusion, a trick of the light, but as she approached, she realized with horror that it was not. The bear was struggling in the water, its large body fighting against the current. The waves were too strong, and the bear was being pulled further from the shore. It was exhausted, its once powerful limbs weakening under the strain. The sight of this large, powerful creature, so helpless in the water, struck something deep within Echo. It was not her instinct to interfere with the creatures of the land, for she had always considered the ocean her domain. Yet seeing the bear, so vulnerable and struggling, stirred something inside her. a sense of compassion, a recognition that this was not the natural order. Echo watched from a distance, unsure of how to help. The bear, too strong and wild to simply let go, was in danger of being pulled under, of being lost to the ocean forever. For the first time in her life, Echo knew she had to do something. She could not let this creature drown. Echo, the dolphin, watched the bear from a distance, her mind racing with the thought of how to help. She had never intervened in the world of the land animals before, and yet here was a creature whose life was slipping away in the very element she called home, the water. Echo had spent her life moving with the current, navigating the sea with ease. But this was different. The bear was in distress, trapped in a powerful current, helpless in a world where it had no understanding. Her instincts kicked in. She had always been taught to help those who needed it, whether in her pod or with the creatures of the sea. This bear, though a land animal, needed her assistance. Without thinking twice, Echo darted toward the bear, cutting through the waves with practiced speed. She had swum near the shore countless times, observing the creatures of the land from afar, but this was the first time she would act on the strange pull she had always felt between her world and theirs. As Echo approached, she saw the bear's large body struggling to stay afloat, its heavy form making it harder for it to keep up with the relentless pull of the ocean. His claws scraped at the water, trying to push himself forward, but he was losing strength with each stroke. His mighty paws, built for swiping fish and climbing trees, were no match for the ocean's currents. Echo's heart raced, but she did not hesitate. She had to act quickly. Echo reached the bear's side in a matter of seconds. Her sleek body glided effortlessly through the water, her presence almost unnoticed by the bear as it struggled. The dolphin circled around the bear, getting closer with each pass, waiting for the right moment to make her move. She needed to approach carefully. This was no ordinary animal. The bear, though exhausted, was still a creature of strength and size, and Echo had to avoid startling it. With a deep breath, Echo swam closer. She positioned herself just beside the bear's massive body and nudged him gently with her snout, trying to make contact without alarming him. The bear, in his panic and fear, flinched and recoiled, splashing water around in an instinctive effort to fight the unexpected force. But Echo did not retreat. She repeated her nudge, this time pressing her body against his side, urging him to stay afloat. The bear's breathing was heavy, his sides rising and falling with the strain. Echo could feel his fear, his struggle against the elements, but she also felt his vulnerability, and with it, a deep, unspoken connection. This was not a predator and prey scenario. It was something more, a shared struggle for survival. At last, the bear, still frightened but sensing that this creature meant no harm, relaxed slightly. Echo continued to push against him, her strength guiding him as they moved together through the water. She didn't push him too hard, just enough to make him follow her lead. The powerful dolphin's quick movements and grace kept the current from taking both of them further out into the ocean. With every push, Echo led the bear toward the shore, where the waves were gentler and the current less relentless. It was a slow, exhausting process, but the dolphin was patient. Her instincts told her that the bear was strong enough to survive this if he only had guidance. For the bear, the experience was terrifying. He had spent his entire life as a hunter, a creature who controlled the forest and ruled the land. The idea of being in a situation he could not control was unsettling. The ocean was foreign to him, a place of uncertainty and danger. His instincts screamed at him to retreat, to fight back against the dolphin's touch. But there was a calmness in her presence that soothed his wild mind. He realized with a dawning clarity that he was no longer alone. The bear instinctively tried to paddle with his paws, but his body felt heavy, his muscles weak from exhaustion. He had never been so vulnerable in his life. Yet with the dolphin beside him, guiding him through the waves, he no longer felt quite as helpless. Her strength, though far smaller and more delicate than his own, was unwavering, and that gave him the courage to keep moving forward. With each passing moment, the bear grew less frantic, more aware that the dolphin was helping him. Not attacking, not trying to harm, but gently guiding him to safety. He allowed himself to be led, trusting her in a way he had never trusted anything before. As they moved closer to the shore, The bear's fear began to melt away, replaced by a strange sense of calm. As Echo guided the bear through the shallows, the water gradually became less turbulent. The waves were smaller now, the current weaker. The bear's paws touched the sand beneath him, and he felt the stability of the land once more. His legs trembled from the strain of the struggle, but the worst of the danger had passed. He was safe, all thanks to the dolphin who had risked everything to save him. As the bear stood in the shallows, his heavy breath slowing, he turned to the dolphin. He looked at her, truly seeing her for the first time, not as a creature of the sea, but as something more. A friend, a companion in a moment of shared survival. He could not speak her language, and she could not speak his, but in this moment, they understood each other completely. The bear nodded his massive head in gratitude, acknowledging the dolphin's role in saving his life. The dolphin, in return, twitched her tail in what could only be described as a playful, yet gentle, gesture. She had done what she knew was right, and there was no greater reward than the knowledge that she had given the bear a chance to live. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, the bear and the dolphin remained near the shore. The bear, still weak but recovering, lingered at the water's edge. The dolphin swam in gentle circles around him, never leaving his side. The forest behind them and the ocean before them had never seemed more connected. They were two creatures from different worlds, both brought together by the ocean's unpredictable forces. But in that moment, there was no predator and prey, no land and sea. There was simply the bond formed by an animal willing to risk everything to help another in need. The bear had survived the ocean's grasp, not through his own power, but because of a dolphin's courage and the silent understanding between them. As the waves gently lapped at the shore, the bear knew one thing for certain. He was no longer just a creature of the land. In this moment, he was part of something much bigger, an interconnected world where, sometimes, even the wildest creatures could become heroes to one another. Days passed, and the bear, though still weak from his struggle in the ocean, found himself growing more accustomed to the rhythm of the shore. Echo, ever the patient guide, stayed by his side, watching over him as he regained his strength. The bear would often rest in the sand, while the dolphin swam in gentle circles around him, her sleek body cutting through the water with ease. As time passed, the bear's once powerful limbs grew stronger, and his confidence returned, though he remained wary of the deep ocean. Echo had made it her mission to help him, not just to survive the ocean, but to understand it. The sea was foreign to him, a world of currents and waves that could overwhelm even the strongest of creatures. But with Echo's guidance, the bear began to see the ocean differently, not as a place of danger, but as a part of the world he now shared with the dolphin. He no longer felt the overwhelming fear that had gripped him when he had first been pulled into the depths. Instead, he began to feel a sense of awe at the vastness of the sea, and a deep respect for the creature who had saved him from its grasp. In return, the bear offered Echo his protection. Though the ocean was her domain, the land was his. As Echo swam, exploring the underwater caves and the coral reefs, the bear would watch from the shore, ever vigilant. He had always been a protector, a guardian of his forest, and now he was learning to extend that role to the ocean. The land and sea were no longer two separate worlds. They were intertwined, and they were both his home. One morning, as the bear ventured closer to the water's edge, he noticed something strange, a sudden disturbance in the water. The ripples grew bigger, and the surface churned as though something large was moving beneath. Echo, who had been swimming nearby, darted to the surface in a flash, her body sleek and fast. The bear watched, his instincts alert. He had seen the ways of the forest and the creatures who roamed it, but this was something new, something he could not quite understand. Echo, seeing the bear's concerned gaze, swam back to the shore and nudged him with her snout. "It's just the tides," she reassured him, though there was an unusual tension in her voice. "The currents shift sometimes, but don't worry, it's nothing we can't handle together." But the bear could tell that the ocean was not the only thing unsettled. Something was amiss. Before Echo could finish her explanation, a dark shadow appeared beneath the surface. The water shifted, and the figure moved quickly toward the shore. A predator, not of the land, but of the sea, a shark. Echo, quick and agile, darted to the side, her body gliding gracefully through the water. But the bear, ever protective, could not stand idle. He rushed to the water's edge, his eyes scanning the depths. The shark was approaching, and though Echo was swift, the danger was real. Without hesitation, the bear waded into the shallows, his massive body breaking the surface of the water as he moved with surprising agility. He knew the power of his limbs on land, but he had never before used them in the water. Yet something about the bond between him and Echo made him bold. He had fought battles in the forest before, but now he faced something unfamiliar. This was not a battle of survival against another creature of the land. It was a fight to protect. The bear, using his massive claws, swiped at the water, sending ripples crashing through the surface. The shark, sensing the bear's presence, circled, eyeing the massive creature with predatory intent. But the bear did not flinch. He stood tall in the water, his eyes locked on the predator, his muscles tense and ready. Echo, seeing the shark hesitating, took advantage of the opportunity. She darted through the water, creating distracting waves with her powerful tail, confusing the shark. The predator, unable to find its target, swam in circles, uncertain of how to proceed. The bear's presence and Echo's quick thinking made the difference. Together they drove the shark back, pushing it farther out into the ocean. The bear, still standing in the shallows, felt the surge of adrenaline ebb away as the threat passed. His heart pounded in his chest, but he was alive, and he had protected his friend. As the waters grew still once again, Echo swam up to the bear, her eyes bright with admiration. She had never seen the bear's strength displayed in such a way. Though he was powerful on land, he had proven that he could be strong in the water too, when it mattered most. "Thank you," Echo said, her voice soft and full of gratitude. "You didn't have to fight for me, but you did." The bear, his body still heavy from the encounter, nodded. There were no words between them, only understanding, a silent acknowledgement that they had fought together, and that their bond was stronger because of it. In that moment, the bear realized that his connection to Echo was not just one of survival, it was a deep partnership, where the land and sea were no longer separate. Together, they were a force that neither land nor water could separate. After the shark was driven away, the bond between the bear and the dolphin grew stronger than ever. The two spent days together, the bear learning more about the ocean's tides and currents, and Echo exploring the edges of the forest, where the land met the sea. They had crossed boundaries they had never imagined, becoming part of each other's worlds. The bear, who had once feared the vastness of the ocean, had now learned to trust its rhythms. And Echo, who had never ventured so far onto land, had come to see the forest with new eyes. The world was not just made of land and sea. It was made of bonds, of connections that could form between the most unlikely of creatures. And for the bear and the dolphin, their miracle was just beginning. As the weeks passed, the bond between the bear and Echo only grew deeper. The forest and the ocean had become intertwined in their lives, each creature learning from the other, their worlds blending in ways they had never expected. The bear had learned to navigate the waves and respect the power of the ocean, while Echo had come to appreciate the strength of the land and the quiet resilience of the bear. Their companionship, though formed in a moment of crisis, had evolved into something much stronger, something rooted in mutual respect, courage, and trust. But even in the most peaceful of times, the world was unpredictable, and the wild was never a place where safety was guaranteed. A new challenge was coming, one that would test everything the bear and Echo had learned from each other. It began with a distant rumble, a sound that echoed through the trees and made the very earth tremble. At first it was barely noticeable, just a soft vibration beneath their paws and fins. But as the day wore on, the rumbling grew louder. The bear, who had spent his entire life in the forest, recognized the sound immediately. It was the rumble of a landslide, the kind that could shake the entire valley and threaten everything in its path. The bear's heart sank as he realized the danger. The mountains above the forest had been weakened by recent rains, and now the loose earth and rocks were shifting, ready to crash down on everything below. The village, the animals, and the forest itself were all at risk. The bear's first instinct was to retreat deeper into the forest, but he knew it wouldn't be enough. The landslide would come fast, sweeping away everything in its path. Echo, hearing the same rumble beneath the surface, surfaced from the waters. Her normally calm eyes were wide with worry. The ocean could help her move quickly, but the landslide was something neither of them could outrun. "We need to warn everyone," the dolphin said, her voice laced with urgency. "The river will carry the water and debris to the coast." The bear nodded. His mind raced with thoughts of the animals in the forest, the people in the village, all vulnerable to the impending disaster. They couldn't just wait for it to happen. They needed to act. Without wasting another moment, the bear and Echo set out together to warn the animals and the humans. The bear, with his powerful legs, led the way through the forest, moving faster than he had in weeks. His instincts kicked in as he ran, calling to the other animals. He bellowed to the deer, the elk, the wild boars, urging them to move toward higher ground. Echo swam to the shore, sending a series of sharp whistles through the water to the other dolphins, signaling them to leave the river's path. The ocean was a powerful ally, but in moments like this, even the swiftest swimmers could be caught in the destruction. The race was on. The rumble of the landslide grew louder, a constant reminder of the approaching danger. The air was thick with tension as the bear and Echo worked together, trying to get everyone to safety before it was too late. But the landslide was faster than they anticipated. The ground began to shake, and within moments a cascade of rocks and mud came crashing down from the mountain. The bear's heart raced as he watched the earth split, sending debris tumbling down the slope. He knew the animals wouldn't have enough time to reach higher ground in time. Echo, watching the chaos unfold, realized that the water was about to rise. The landslide would send a massive wave into the river, pushing the water toward the village. The bear's home, his friends, and everything in the forest were in imminent danger. With no time to waste, Echo made a decision. She dove into the river, her powerful tail propelling her with speed. She had to warn the humans who lived along the river's edge. She would use her ability to travel swiftly through the water to reach the village in time. The bear, knowing he couldn't keep up, watched helplessly as Echo vanished into the water. He wanted to follow her, but the forest needed him. He had to keep moving, leading the animals to safety. The landslide hit with terrifying force. The bear could feel the ground beneath him shift as the earth moved, but he pressed on. His instincts, sharpened by years of survival, guided him to the highest hills where he could see the destruction unfold in the distance. Echo arrived at the village just in time. As the river surged with the force of the landslide, she jumped to the surface and sent a warning call to the villagers. She used her tail to splash the water violently, signaling the impending flood. The villagers, initially confused, soon understood the threat when they saw the river rising faster than normal. Echo's quick thinking gave them just enough time to evacuate to higher ground. Back in the forest, the bear watched as the wave from the river began to crest, threatening to push even higher into the valley. With the animals safe on the hillsides, he turned back toward the forest and toward Echo, knowing she had done everything in her power to warn the humans. As the debris from the landslide swept away into the ocean, the bear knew that the forest had been spared, but just barely. He and Echo had saved the lives of everyone in their path, but the cost had been high. The days following the landslide were filled with quiet reflection. The forest had been scarred, but it would recover. The river had swelled, carrying away debris, but it had also carried hope. The bear and Echo had done what they could, and together they had saved the land and the sea. When it was time for Echo to return to the ocean, the bear stood on the shore, watching as she disappeared beneath the waves. They had fought together, faced the chaos of the earth and the ocean, and come out victorious. The bond they shared had changed them both. It was a bond that transcended species, a bond built on trust, sacrifice, and the wild love of life. Before Echo swam out of sight, the bear looked out over the ocean, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. He had been saved by this remarkable creature, and in return, he had saved her world.